You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
I mean, Brazilian Ty, he doesn't get out much. He doesn't watch any of those classics. I've missed a lot of them. I've never seen Harry Potter. Take that to the bank.
I've seen one of them. I've never seen a Batman movie.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Tide.
Hunters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And yes, we're a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB Brazilian Tie. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Oh my God, I nailed that. But Monopoly's on.
And I feel like crap already.
Okay, so we're at the beginning of day 2. What did you get? What did you get in you in day 1?
A large Coke, a hash brown, and a sauce. I ordered a sausage and egg bagel, but they gave me a bacon and egg. So when I opened it, I was full of disappointment and then full of shame after I finished it.
How
and
sad
regret.
is that? Like, I like bacon as much as the next guy, but sausage is clearly the superior in this situation.
Yeah, like the sausage patties at McDonald's are like, and even at Subway too. Like they're phenomenal.
Yeah, they absolutely are. So when you get bacon, it's a bit of a disappointment. All I got today was the old medium coffee. I'm big about the app.
Look at you!
And I'm big on the app because you can like collect rewards. So I've got 2 or 3 free coffees. So today I got Algonquin Provincial Park and a free small coffee. So there's a couple more pieces I can kind of reinvest until I get the old boardwalk. Did you get anything good?
I got Lake Louise for like the 30th time. That's all I could get last year, and the Montreal airport. I've been in the Montreal airport. I don't want this piece.
And I don't think the value of the real-life Lake Louise matches the game. It's crap.
No, yeah, it's the light blue. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what's the equivalent of boardwalk?
I didn't grab a board this morning because I figure if I grab a board, I'm going to be more inclined to go. I'm hoping this was just a one-off today.
I got a board.
Of course you did.
I'm all in.
Maybe I'll just give you my pieces and we can claim the prize as a podcast instead of just individually.
All right, let's do it.
Join Two and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were!
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca
Enough from talking about it. There has to be consequences.
and pick'em.cfl.ca.
All right, week 18. I can't believe we're at this point of the season already, but here we are, and we start Friday night in Toronto as the Hamilton Tiger Cats look to try and catch up to those Ottawa RedBlacks for first in the East Division. The Ticats are 7.5-point favorites. They're 7-7, while the Argos are 3-11 and third in the East. The Ticats look to make it 2 wins in a row, and Ottawa has lost 6 straight. Let's talk about Hamilton. They end up signing Terrell Sinkfield, which might be a name that you remember. He was a 1,000-yard receiver with the Tabbies in 2015, and he was actually most recently playing DB in the NFL. And he was going to come to the CFL, I guess, earlier, but the Raiders ended up signing him as a DB. They just let him go, so now he's back in Canada. This guy is a big talent. Let's hope that the old 6-game curse does not continue with this guy, because being a receiver in Hamilton or Calgary is not a good place right now.
No, they wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole at this point in time. But that another weapon that they can add to this offense if he can get back to what he was before. Like you said, a 1,000-yard receiver once before in this league. He's got the skill set to do it again. And, with the guys that they have hurt in Hamilton right now, it's a great add for that offense.
Yeah, it totally is. And you look at the guys that are hurt right now with Saunders and Williams, and it is just not good right now.
Tolliver not doing much.
Yeah, and he's been banged up as well. So it's been the Brandon Banks show, and Luke Tasker he's been holding his own as well. So if Singfield can do anything this season, anything that resembles what he's done in the past, then it is definitely a good move. I really like any Ticats that you want in your lineup this week because the Argo defense is playing bad. If you can afford to get the
Did you say playing or plain?
Plain.
That makes it even better.
If you can afford to have Ticats in your lineup, do it. The problem is most of them are pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's not. You're not going to find a lot of bargains.
No.
Mike Jones maybe if they continue to throw the ball his way. Tasker at 17.1 against Toronto. Brandon Banks at 21. Brandon Banks is the highest, or I guess the most expensive receiver this week. And he's returning kicks. He does it all. And he can break the big play. Jeremiah Masoli, 17.7. That's pretty respectable. Well above his average against everybody else. So, I mean, this offense, if it's clicking on all cylinders, look out.
Well, and I mean, John White is probably your best bet. And he actually does come at a pretty respectable price. And, before the bye, they were giving him carries. And, I mean, sometimes in the CFL, especially in fantasy, it can be pretty hard to get a running back that gets volume, but he's not costing you $10,000. And John White just might be your guy.
And averaging 9.1. So, I mean, he's not the cheapest. He's not the most expensive. He's kind of in the middle of the pack and with an upside to where a touchdown kind of inflates his value a little bit more.
The Argos, by the way, the worst rush defense in the CFL, giving up 123 yards a game. So, I mean, the Ticats seem to trust John White. If they're going to give him the ball, he should have a nice game this week against the Argos. As for those Argos, James Franklin gets the start. And for a lot of Argos fans' money, it's probably 3 or 4 weeks too late for James Franklin to be getting the start. Brandon Burks looks like he's probably going to be starting again as well. He had himself a nice game last week. I think it was around 13 points. And he was probably a drop pass from making that an over 20-point day. But that TSN CFL Fantasy, they noticed, and they bumped his price up. I think he's around $4K right now. So there's still a discount there, but not quite the $2,500 player he was last week.
No, and rightfully so. I mean, you can only be that player for so long until who's ever running that website finally, watches highlights and decides to change prices. It doesn't seem to happen very quickly. If you can find a way, it makes perfect sense. And with him being what he is price-wise, he can fit into almost any lineup still.
The Ticats are another one of those teams giving up over 110 yards a game on the ground, so it might be a nice option to have him in your lineup. Although Tressman and the Argo offense they're not committing to a running back. I mean, Burks probably had 8 or 9 carries. You would like to see that get into the double digits for fantasy purposes. How do you see Franklin doing in this one? The Tiger Cats have the best pass defense in the CFL, 228 yards a game given up. That is a full 12 yards on average better than the Calgary Stampeders, just to put things into perspective there. Franklin might be in a little bit tough this week.
The one thing that's going to save him, so to speak, would be the fact that he can move the pocket, much like his counterpart on the other side can do as well. Move the pocket and maybe get different looks down the field. But, I mean, with the secondary they have in Hamilton and they're able to pressure quarterback, he's not going to be able to run all night. I don't see it. I don't see it being a complete disaster, but I don't see it being very successful at the same time. So I don't know. Just Hamilton's defense is fast. they're scary, and especially for a guy who doesn't get a lot of snaps in this offense. I know he's getting the first team reps this week, but at game speed, it's totally different.
And he might be without one of his best weapons in S.J. Green. So, and not because of trade deadline, which he was rumored to be on the block and to be moving on Wednesday. But I assume that the big hit he took from Jordan Herdman in BC last week meant that maybe some teams did not want to trade for S.J. But Duron Carter seems to have some sort of chemistry with Franklin, and Franklin was throwing to him last week once he get into the game and threw him a touchdown pass. So maybe there is some value in Duron Carter. Amani Edwards has had some nice games against the Ticats in the past as well, averaging just under 18 points against the Ticats over the last little while. Who do you have winning this game?
I have Hamilton. They're second. They're 7-7. Toronto's 3-11 for a reason. Hamilton wants to keep pace with Ottawa, and they're just a better football team in almost every aspect. Kicking game, they're better. Offense is better. Defense is better. I don't care that they're on the road. It's barely a road game in Toronto, so I'll take the Ticats.
Yeah, this is probably the easiest road trip in the entire Canadian Football League for a team, and Hamilton brings a good contingent of Ticats fans with them as well, so that helps out their cause. I have the Ticats as well. Now, it's very rare that these teams play three times. Well, not so rare, but it doesn't happen all the time. The Riders, 10-5, second in the West, go to Winnipeg, who are actually 3.5-point favorites. And the Bombers are 8-7 with they're sitting at third in the West. Now the Riders are on fire. 4 straight road wins, 7 of their last 8, and their record against the West is 5-2. Wow. What a change, because when Jones first got to Saskatchewan, the narrative was that massive losing streak and terrible performance against Western teams.
And he's turned it around. I know, like, I've gotten to discussions on Twitter before, people saying, I don't get why you hate Jones. Look at what he's done with the team and blah, blah. Yeah, that's great. I don't like his decision-making and his game management. That's what I have a problem with, and the whole Zach Collaros thing is kind of blown up. They're winning, but not with great quarterback play, which just at some point is going to bite us in the ass. But this team has turned basically almost every aspect around, minus the quarterback play. The defense is arguably one of the best, if not the best in the league right now. And they make plays, and it's rare that a defense makes as many plays as they do. At some point, that will regress. It's not going to stay like this. I know we say that about Winnipeg, and they still do it year in, year out. It seems to ball hawk, but it's just it's a completely different team, and I don't know what changed other than Duron Carter leaving.
Well, and it's kind of funny because last year the Rider offense, they were great. I really trusted them against Winnipeg in week 2. They put up 40 points. And then the next week against Hamilton, this is last season, 37 points, 38 against Toronto, 41 against BC, 54 against Edmonton, 38 against Winnipeg. There is not that kind of offensive output from the team this year. No. And last year, they really weren't getting the same amount of defensive returns, but what they're doing this year is crazy. They have 9 on the season. The record is 11 from the 1987 BC Lions, so that just goes to show that, man, this defense is making plays and kind of propping that offense up a little bit. You're going to want to see something better from Zach Collaros in the offense. I'm really beginning to think it's kind of the cast around him. The receiving core is not good, and
no,
there's kind of been a flip because last year, the defense was good, but they're not on this year's level. You know what I mean? They were giving up a lot more yards and points last year than they are doing this year. But the Bombers, they're on a roll right now, so they have to be talked about as well. They've won 3 straight, but they lost Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl against the Riders, and their Western
decisively.
Record, yes, their Western record is flipped with Saskatchewan, 2-5 against Western teams. That's not good.
They have not been good inside the West Division, and them only being 3.5 points favorites tells me that, on a neutral field, this is a tie game. You usually give 3 points to the home team, regardless of situation. You go from there. So, I mean, the two teams kind of on the same roll right now. Just both defenses are able to have that playmaking ability, and I think with Winnipeg's offense, like that run, the run offense, like the rushing offense with Andrew Harris is just so much better than the Riders. I think gives them a slight edge. I think, but then you look at that Saskatchewan defensive line, and they have the ability to stop almost anything, whether it be the pass game or the rush game from their front four. So the Bombers will have a little bit. They'll have. I would guess they'd have a little bit of trouble with that to start, but I mean they got a good coaching staff to make adjustments. Like you said, 3 straight. The 2-5 inside the West is just that's not going to get the job done. They're in a playoff spot right now, but I mean if that trend continues, they're not going to be there for very long.
Saskatchewan, probably the healthiest team in the CFL at this point in the season, and they've gotten pretty lucky, especially on the offensive line, where they've stayed healthy most of the year. And at the beginning of the year, it was considered a point of weakness, but the fact that they've been able to play together and not really have that many injury issues has made them a pretty good offensive line. They've given up the least sacks in the CFL, but last week against Edmonton, center Dan Clark was injured and he limped off the field. He ended up finishing the game, but in practice this week, Brendan Labatt has been practicing at center, and Josiah St. John and Taron Vaughn were getting reps at left guard. So it looks like this move that Chris Jones made with Kavis Reed in Montreal on deadline day yesterday kind of helps with that offensive line depth a little bit. They trade Josh Stanford and their second-round pick to the Owls in exchange for offensive lineman Philip Blake and Patrick Lavoie. I really like this move for the Riders, actually, and I'm a fan of Patrick Lavoie. He's a big kid. He's hard to tackle. He's not, touching the ball every play, but he is an asset, a Canadian, obviously, to any team, and Blake adds a little bit more depth to that offensive line. So I think it's a good trade here.
Blake has started every game that he has been an Alouette. 57. And what did we talk about on our last show? About how they don't have an offensive line right now. It's not good enough. It's patchwork. And they trade an offensive line starter. What is Montreal doing?
Well, I know this is Ottawa, but let's talk about that. Montreal was also involved in another deal. They trade their second-round pick, Ottawa does, to Montreal for linebacker Chris Aki, who has had a hell of a season. And another Canadian starter for the Alouettes, as it looks like Kavis is trying to recoup picks lost in the Manziel trade. Aki this season has 81 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. Big thing here, Aki was in the last year of his deal. So if they knew that he wasn't going to re-sign with Montreal, this is a good move for the Alouettes. It's an even better move for the RedBlacks.
And if he signs back in Montreal, it looks even better.
Well, yeah, Aki played with Thorpe, so I assume Noel said, hey, we got to go get this guy if we can. And Pruneau's been banged up on the Ottawa defense, so it's a nice move for them. But Kavis losing himself another Canadian starter.
Like, I get wanting to recoup the draft picks that he lost in the Manziel deal. That makes complete sense to me, but trading Philip Blake and Aki, you're creating 2 huge holes. And the offensive line was already a hole. You're making that even bigger. Aki is, a national, which makes it a bigger hole because now you have to make sure that now you got the ratio to worry about. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Now I know that the O-line struggled. They didn't look good in Montreal, but I mean, this guy has started every game he's played, so he's obviously good enough. I mean, he was a Big 12 All-Star when he played at Baylor. Like, this move doesn't make any sense to me for Montreal other than getting that draft pick back. Well, whatever. Like, I mean, you just basically filled a need for Saskatchewan and said, whatever, we'll just take this back. Like that's like they better be drafting offensive linemen if it's such a problem for that team that these picks have to be offensive linemen and they have to be good. You can't miss on these picks now. Like the offensive line, it's such a dumpster fire. I just don't even. I could go on and on. And it's a broken record. I mean, we talk about this every week.
And if Cavis still has a job next year, which at this point we don't know if he does, he's kind of the cockroach of the CFL, right? He can't. He's always getting himself a job somewhere, and good for him. But he has a lot of work to do in the offseason, and that goes without saying. I know that Vernon Adams has re-upped. Manziel is under contract for next season, and Pipkin's going to be a free agent after this one. So I think the quarterback situation is probably okay. But Chris Aki is probably gone. Patrick Lavoie is gone. Philip Blake is gone. And John Bowman has said that he's 98% sure he's retiring after this season. So Cavis made a lot of moves last offseason. He's going to have even more work this season to give his quarterback something to work with.
And we have seen evidence that he will not fix anything in free agency. It looks good on paper. Looks like the team should be better, and then this is what we get year in, year out with him at the helm. So my expectations are non-existent. Now, if the Wenton Halls decide to fire him, completely different story, and it all depends on who they get in there. Riders win the Grey Cup, maybe Chris Jones goes and tries to fix Montreal because his ego would absolutely love that.
He totally would. But what other position could they add to Chris Jones' title?
Maybe the Wenton Halls cut him in.
Yeah, he's part owner, GM, defensive coordinator, head coach.
D-line coach. Just add something that, doesn't even matter. Like,
popcorn vendor.
Football inflator. Like, who cares?
Come on, it looks good on a resume, Chris. Come to Montreal, man.
Said no one ever.
Somehow we were talking about the Saskatchewan Roughriders here. I'm not sure if you can trust any member of the offense as far as fantasy goes for this week in Winnipeg.
I'm trusting one.
You are trusting one, and I assume we're not going to get to it until we get to your fantasy roster near the end of the show.
Let's just say I've been burned by him numerous times in the past.
Zach Calero?
This year, maybe.
He's averaged 16 points.
Because he's so cheap.
Yeah, it's getting pretty tough with quarterback. I know where you're coming from there. I mean, Marcus Thigpen or Trey Mason, maybe.
Are they going to get the ball?
Yeah, I know. Do you ever look at the forecast, though? Do you ever consider that? Because in Winnipeg, on Saturday, 2 degrees, rain and or snow. So
it's
to me,
snowing right now.
On the Winnipeg side of things, that screams it's going to be all Andrew Harris.
God, I hope so.
What is Saskatchewan going to do? I mean, the passing game's not good as it is.
Throw those short passes and hope for the best, because they won't commit to the run.
Yeah, they've used those short passes as their run game, and
yeah. As for receivers, I would stay away. But you're basically flipping a coin between Trey Mason and Marcus Thigpen, and you have no idea who's going to be in to get carries.
As for Winnipeg, Weston Dressler left practice on Wednesday, but ended up returning as a non-participant. O'Shea said he should be okay to go this weekend, but that's you taking Mike O'Shea's word, and I wouldn't do it. Jackson Jeffcoat ended up returning to practice, but it doesn't look like he's quite ready to go either. I did say the forecast. I kind of gave a little bit of a spoiler there. I do like Andrew Harris this week. The Rider defense is one of the 3 defenses in the CFL giving up less than 100 rush yards a game. But Andrew Harris was able to have a hell of a game against them in Labor Day. So I think Paul LaPolice figured something out. And I wouldn't doubt if Mr. Harris has himself another big game this weekend.
And it would. I don't think it would matter who it was against. You're not really ever surprised when Andrew Harris, has a 100-yard game. You're more surprised when it's a 50-yard night with 10 carries.
Yeah.
Like he is. If you can find a way to fit a $10,000 running back into your lineup, it's usually guys that are that high will usually pay off. Thing is, you could get Labor Day Andrew Harris, or you could get Banjo Bowl Andrew Harris.
Yeah, because Labor Day, 15 carries for 158. What did he do at the Banjo Bowl?
It was under 70 yards, I think. I don't even think he hit 70. So, yeah. And we know what this defense can do. So, I mean, he's usually really consistent. I don't know what else you can really say about him. Like, he does everything. He catches the ball, runs the ball. He had 10 carries for 21 yards at the Banjo Bowl.
Yikes.
And 1 catch for 13. So, I mean, Saskatchewan's proved that after seeing him for a game, they were able to make the adjustments. Whether or not Winnipeg can make the adjustments back into their favor to get the run game going this weekend is going to depend on whether or not they win this football game.
Dressler's been having nice games. Darvin Adams is consistent in that receiving core. We'll see if Dressler plays. If he doesn't, maybe Darvin is another number 1 target, and he already is in that Winnipeg offense. And maybe for your fantasy lineup, if you want to go with him, who do you got in this one?
Taking the Riders, just, these two teams evenly matched right now with how they're both playing. I just think the Riders' defense right now has a little bit of an edge, and that'll cancel out the edge that Winnipeg has in the run game.
I'm going to pick Winnipeg here. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season.
They're going to have to beat them 4 times to get to the Grey Cup.
Yeah, it can be done. It totally can be done. But I'm going to go Bombers here. I think the cold weather is going to be tough on Zach and the Riders, and Andrew Harris will flourish in it. And the Bomber defense is forcing those turnovers, and they're firing in all cylinders. Caleros had the fumble last week and the interception. The Bombers might be able to force him into more mistakes as well. So I'm going to give the home team the edge.
You say that, the cold weather might have a adverse effect on Zach Caleros. Not like the nice warm weather has been any better for him.
Man, you're a hater.
No, I'm a realist. It's different.
Saying thank you to our sponsor this week, Park Power. They're based out of Sherwood Park, Alberta, and it's really cool what they do. You're getting power. You look at your bill, it's crazy, man. I mean, $5 worth of power, and the rest is delivery charges. But these guys, small company, low overhead costs, and they donate 10% of their profits to local charities. It's real easy to make the switch for your natural gas and power. So parkpower.ca. Money staying right here in Alberta, supporting Alberta jobs. So parkpower.ca to make the switch today. The third game. We're in a triple header, another Super Saturday. I'm a big fan.
Sweet.
Edmonton home to Ottawa, and Edmonton has just been limping along, but somehow they're 3.5-point favorites. They're 7-8. Fifth in the West, Ottawa 8-6, and first in the East. Ottawa's kind of been all over the place in the last little while. 2-2 in their last 4, and 4-3 on the road. Edmonton has lost 3 of 5, but are 5-2 at home. 5-2 at home. Ottawa, I think this is really cool. The 67s, the junior hockey team out there, is going to be wearing RedBlacks themed jerseys this Sunday. William Powell, Greg Ellingson going to be on hand signing autographs. I think this is a really cool thing when a city has an ownership group with all the teams under one banner.
Yeah, and it makes it so easy for cross promotion, and for managing facilities and getting everything that aspect. You can do stuff with both teams or all three teams, like we see in Toronto with Raptors, Leafs, TFC, and now the Argos, all under MLSE. And you can take money out of one pocket and put it in the other if a team needs stuff. So I mean, you can do it that way as well. It's a positive for everyone involved.
William Powell has to be the most popular pick, but he's going to cost you.
Yeah, he is the most expensive running back.
He does not come cheap at all, but I think it could be another one of those games when the thermometer's dropping a little bit and there's more emphasis on running. Edmonton's rush defense is middle of the pack, 106.3 yards given up on the ground. But when their defensive line is doing their job, when Almondo Sewell is doing what he can do in the middle of the line, they can be tough to run against. But it almost seems like William Powell at this point is basically unstoppable.
Yeah, and him and Andrew Harris are going to go right down to the wire as long as they both stay healthy and battle for that rushing lead. And the Edmonton defensive line, if they can get pressure and stop the run and they're able to disrupt a little bit of the pass game, we've seen Ottawa's pass offense go to crap and not even in games where they get pressure. It's just Trevor Harris, inconsistent. So it's going to be on the defensive line of the Eskimos to get into the backfield and disrupt this offense and make things happen for their secondary or make life easier for their secondary, because we know that this offense can give up, or this defense, can give up a lot of pass yards. Maybe not the points, but the pass yards are definitely there. And, if Harris, I know we say that you got to establish a run to get the pass game on, but with this defense and the way that Harris can sling the ball around, he can use the pass game to set up the run at the same time. So it's going to be pick your poison, and hopefully you can shut down one of the aspects.
You got to assume that Benavidez and the Eskimo defense is going to be desperate to make things happen, because the offense has not been clicking on all cylinders, but it seems like Benavidez doesn't trust his secondary to play man-to-man, and they hardly ever blitz. And I think that's what they're going to have to do for Trevor Harris. But at the same time, do you want to play man-to-man on Greg Ellingson, Brad Sinopoli, and Deontay Spencer?
I would like to see it just to see Grimes get beat. And then chirp afterwards. It's like, dude, really?
Well, this happens in every CFL defense. My favorite part is when a quarterback overthrows a guy by 7 yards, and then the DB celebrates.
Yeah, it happens in the NFL all the time too. When the coach is like, "Yeah,
come on, you DB, you did nothing.
You did nothing." If anything, it makes you look bad because the receiver is behind you.
Yeah. He beat you. It's like a guy hitting the post on a breakaway,
Yeah. The only person who should be happy about that is the goalie. The only person who should be happy about that is the goalie, because that's all he gave him to shoot at, is the way I look at it.
So, Ottawa's rush defense, they're actually top 4 in the league. Their pass defense is middle of the pack. Both of these teams are actually middle of the pack here. So I can't trust having Gable in the lineup because the Eskimos just don't give him the ball.
No, it makes zero sense to me. I don't get it. He averages over 5 yards a carry last game. He doesn't get the ball. Give him the ball. Let him make plays. You can chew clock. They had the lead. I don't understand how. Same with Jeremiah. Jeremiah Johnson got the carries last week. Great. This week, who knows what the heck's going to happen?
Well,
CJ Gable
Sutton starts. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, doesn't get carries consistently. Like William Powell, we've seen get shut out on carries when they're on the 3-yard line, and that you should be running the ball. I don't get what's going on right now in the CFL with guys not getting the opportunities. If I'm Edmonton, I'm giving the ball to CJ Gable. If I'm Ottawa, I am not worried about CJ Gable right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. But they got a new, who knows if he'll be in the lineup, but they got a linebacker coming in Chris Aki to help out with all sides of that defense. Duke Williams averages 3.8 points in his career against the RedBlacks, but I can't really trust having Stafford or Hazelton, maybe Bryant Mitchell, but it's hard to trust any of the offensive pieces, even Mike Riley at this point.
Yeah. Duke is obviously going to be the number one target, and he should be. I mean, he is the best receiver in that core right now, but Mike Riley at $12,800, get out of here with that garbage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
There's no way you can justify that this week. Absolutely no way after what we've seen the last couple. Makes zero sense.
Who's picking a win here?
I am taking Ottawa because Edmonton is on the short week.
Now, part of the reason I picked Winnipeg is because Saskatchewan's on the short week. But I'm going to pick Edmonton, even though they're on the short week. So,
Screw me, right? What do I know?
Hey, it's just me talking out of the both side of my mouth and calling myself out, I guess.
I took Saskatchewan too, so but I just, after what we saw from Edmonton last week and them being on a short week, I don't see a lot of improvement.
Man, I just keep waiting for that offense to explode, But
they're not playing Montreal.
Yeah, that's true. They're just feast or famine. They either have a big, 80-yard play, and they won't run the ball, so they never drive, have sustained drives, but at the same time, they're getting pinned at their 10-yard line all game long, too.
And by not running the ball, their drives are quick.
Yeah.
So they don't chew a lot of clock.
I'm still going to go Edmonton, and if they don't win this, probably the last time I pick them this season.
All right, so are you saying if they don't win this, they don't make the playoffs?
Dude, if they don't win this, I might bet that they're not going to make the playoffs, although Calgary or BC has Calgary twice. So
yeah,
But
once at home.
Yeah, and you know what? Calgary might pack it in for that last game in Vancouver, too.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how things go here. Calgary, 10.5-point favorites over those BC Lions. They're 12-2, first in the West. BC 500 and sitting at fourth. It's been talked about a lot. BC 1-6 on the road, 2-4 inside the West, but they've won 4 of their last last 5 games. Calgary undefeated, 7-0 at home. They've won 4 of their last 5, and they're 4-2 in the West Division. They will clinch first with a win and a Saskatchewan loss. We do start with BC. They did release Trayvon Van, and they've already announced that Travis Lulay and Tyrell Sutton will get the starts this week. Solomon Elimimian will not play. He's been cleared. He does want to practice and play a few games before the playoffs if they make it. Now, it hasn't been talked about a lot, which is kind of surprising, because this is Wally Buono's last go-round. We thought we went through this, 5 years ago or whatever, but it's true this time, and it's his final game in McMahon Stadium. He has coached 141 regular season games at McMahon with a record, tell me if this is good, 103 wins, 37 losses, and 1 tie.
I'd like to know Dave Dickinson's winning percentage.
Yeah, it's probably better at this point. What does he have, 1 or 2 losses at McMahon since he took over? It's crazy.
I think so, something like that, yeah.
But Wally did win 3 Grey Cups as the Stampeder head coach in 92, 98, and 2001. So not only is he a Lions legend, he is a Stampeders legend, and I'm sure he'll get his due and he'll get a standing O in Calgary this weekend.
Does The Rock show up for this game?
Oh, maybe he goes to the last game in Vancouver.
That'd be unreal.
The Rock shows up to say goodbye to Wally?
Yeah, but they do it like they did on Raw that one night where he totally just trashed everybody that came out.
This is your life.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, Rock just cuts a promo on him for getting cut. Oh, I do not like any members of the Lions in this one.
Not against this defense, no. Lule does average 18.5 against Calgary. With that shoulder, I don't know. This defense can get to the quarterback, and if he gets hurt again, Jennings is going to come in. So I would stay away from both quarterbacks just because of the injury aspect. Chris Rainey maybe because of the returns. I have a feeling PC is going to get a lot of kicks their way. Like you said, Sutton starting, so obviously you're staying away from Jeremiah Johnson. Everything right now screams no on the BC side of the ball. By saying that, they're going to put up 40 points on Calgary, shock them at home, and we're going to look like complete fools.
Yeah, I know they beat Calgary in the preseason, and even in the preseason, people were like, yeah, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks
and then
like,
they remembered it was preseason football.
Yeah. We could have another snowy game in Calgary. We could have 2 whiteouts this weekend, one in Winnipeg and one in Calgary. I love snow football so much, and that's partly why I loved the Grey Cup in Ottawa last year so much. But maybe BC will toughen up and play okay in the snow. We know what happens in Calgary when it snows. I almost need a Calgary swear jar at this point.
Yeah, like you crap on them more than I crap on Montreal, I think. In this episode, anyway.
Well, we'll see what happens here. As far as Calgary goes, I would not blame you for picking Eric Rogers or Bo Levi Mitchell or Don Jackson in this one. I mean, that basically seems to be the only 3 players at this point because of all the receiving injuries in Calgary.
And we don't know who out of those, like Markeith Ambles and Lamar Durant and those guys, who's going to get the looks.
Yeah,
we know Eric Rogers is,
Yeah,
or Breskus in. We know Eric Rogers is an established piece of that receiving core. He's going to get looks. Don Jackson's going to get touches out of the backfield, and get the screen passes. So any one of those 3, if you can throw Bo Levi Mitchell in there, if you can find room for him, it could be a big night for the Calgary quarterback.
Who are you picking?
I'm taking the Stamps. I don't even think it's a question.
Yeah, me too. The Lions have just been brutal on the road, and the Stamps are what they are at McMahon Stadium. Now, your fantasy lineup. How's she looking?
Well, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I took Zach Collaros.
I am shocked about this. You crap on him nonstop.
Yeah, but he's cheap. And, I mean, if I can get 10 points out of him instead of paying, $12,000 for 10 points out of Mike Riley. Give me a break. John White, Don Jackson, Greg Ellingson, and Deontay Spencer, Levi Noel, because I had to get a cheap receiver in there, and he may be a safety valve for James Franklin, and the Ottawa RedBlacks defense, because the offense in Edmonton right now is subpar.
We're almost at this point where you have to pick a cheap guy and try to hit a home run with it.
Mm-hmm. And I've got $3 left, so suck on that, Travis.
So I got $145 left. My quarterback right now is James Franklin.
I figured it would be.
Why?
No, it's because it's just that was who I would have thought you would pick.
Oh,
and
wow.
You did,
well,
so.
Let's see if you can predict the rest of my lineup.
Okay, so you got John White.
Yep.
You probably have Don Jackson.
No.
Oh. Oh, you have Brandon Burks.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you probably threw in...
I think it's going to get tough for you here.
Yeah. I'm going to... You didn't take anybody from BC.
It's a kitty cat.
Okay, so then you would have taken Mike Jones.
No. I'm just going to tell you the rest now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I got the quarterback and the 2 running backs, so I'll take... Oh, and your defense is going to be super cheap.
No, you're... Okay.
No, you went with the Riders defense, didn't you?
I did not. So I got Brandon Banks. I spent a lot of money there. I went R.J. Harris. And I actually went Shaq Evans in my flex. He's only $3,300, and he's getting the targets. He had 6 catches last week against Edmonton. He had 6 against Montreal. And while every catch seems to be an adventure with him, he's still making them happen. My defense, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, yeah.
$5,600.
I've got them at 58.24 now. They went up since you made your lineup.
Oh, and it looks like it doesn't screw me out of those.
No, you get it. It's like when you make a bet, man. You get it at that price point.
And it's funny because when I click Shaq Evans, it says he's 3,800, and I've got him at 33.
So you cheated.
What's the Bombers' defense been doing lately? Against Ottawa, they had 5 points. Against Edmonton a few weeks ago, 29. So I'm hoping for one of those 29-point days,
or even an average between those two at 17 wouldn't be terrible.
Hey, that would not be terrible. I would take that to the
How's
bank.
that for some quick math?
Well done with the math, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
We're a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. If you just go to albertapodcastnetwork.com, there is a podcast all over the place. If you like movies, check Emily Missed Out. She watches classic pop culture-filled movie gems that she's never seen. I really like the idea of that podcast. I mean, Brazilian Ty, he doesn't get out much. He doesn't watch any of those classics. I've missed a lot of them. I've never seen Harry Potter. Take that to the bank.
I've seen one of them. I've never seen a Batman movie.
We've been through this season.
Yeah, but I've watched Bull Durham like 50 times.
Give us a rating, a review, and a subscription on iTunes, and we'll talk to you Monday morning.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.